What would you do if the person you trusted most handed you divorce papers on your birthday? When the courier showed up at my workplace with a thick envelope, I thought it was a prank. I never imagined that one night spent chasing attention would cost me my marriage, my family, and the life I thought I deserved. Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The kitchen clock ticked past 8:30 as I stood at the sink, washing the same plate for the third time. Mark hadn't looked up from his laptop once during dinner, and our 7-year-old daughter, Ellie, had barely touched her food before disappearing upstairs to her room. "Mark, did you even notice I got my hair done today?" I asked, turning to face him at the kitchen table. He glanced up briefly, his brown eyes tired behind wire-rimmed glasses. "It looks nice, Cori. Listen, I need to finish these quarterly reports tonight. The Henderson account is a mess." "It looks nice," I repeated, my voice rising. "That's all you have to say? I spent 3 hours and $200 at the salon, and that's your response?" Mark closed his laptop with a sigh. "What do you want me to say? You look beautiful. You always look beautiful. But right now I'm drowning in work, and Ellie's teacher called again about her grades slipping." I dried my hands on the dish towel, fighting back tears of frustration. "When was the last time you really looked at me, Mark? When was the last time you told me I was pretty without me having to fish for compliments? That's not fair, Cori. You know I appreciate you. I work 60-hour weeks to keep this house, to pay for Ellie's school, to give us the life we have. But what about me?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "What about what I need? I feel invisible in my own home." Mark stood up, running his hands through his thinning hair. "I don't have time for this tonight. I have deadlines." As he walked past me toward his home office, I grabbed his arm. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're always too busy, too tired, too stressed. When do I get to matter?" He turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. "You do matter, Cori. More than you know. But I can't drop everything every time you need validation." The word validation hit me like a slap. "Is that what you think this is? Me being needy?" "I think you're looking for problems where there aren't any," he said quietly. "We're fine, Cori. We're a family. Isn't that enough?" But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. Later that evening, I called my sister Lila while Mark worked in his office and Ellie did homework in her room. He called it validation, Lila, like I'm some desperate housewife begging for scraps of attention. "Honey, you deserve to feel beautiful and wanted," Lila said, her voice warm with sympathy. "Maybe Mark's just gotten too comfortable. Sometimes men need a wake-up call." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe it's time you focused on yourself for once. When was the last time you did something just for you? Something that made you feel alive and attractive?" I thought about it. When was the last time? Before Ellie was born. Before Mark and I got so caught up in the routine of bills and bedtimes and weekend grocery runs. "I can't remember," I admitted. "Then it's time to change that. You're 32 years old, Cori. You're in your prime. Don't let Mark's workaholic tendencies make you feel like you're invisible." After we hung up, I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, really looking at myself for the first time in months. My new highlights did look good. My figure was still trim from my morning walks. I wasn't invisible. Mark was just too distracted to see me. The next morning at Metro Office Solutions, where I worked as an administrative coordinator, I noticed the new temp immediately. Damian Greaves was probably 30, with dark hair and an easy smile that he flashed at everyone he met. When he introduced himself to me, he held eye contact just a beat longer than necessary. "Cori Felton," I said, shaking his hand. "I handle scheduling and client coordination." "Beautiful name for a beautiful woman," he said, and I felt a flutter in my stomach that I hadn't experienced in years. "Thank you," I managed, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "I hope you'll show me around. I'd love to learn from someone as clearly competent as you." The compliment was simple, maybe even a little cheesy, but it made me stand straighter. When was the last time Mark had called me competent or beautiful? Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "Will you be home for dinner? Want to make sure I pick up enough groceries?" I stared at the message, so practical and emotionless. No "how's your day" or "miss you." Just logistics. I slipped my phone back into my purse without responding. If Mark wanted to know my plans, he could try a little harder. "Everything okay?" Damian appeared beside my desk, concern in his dark eyes. "Just husband stuff," I said with a forced smile. "Ah, the old ball and chain?" he joked, then quickly backtracked. "Sorry, that was inappropriate. I just meant marriage can be challenging." "You're not wrong," I said, surprising myself with my honesty. "Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a stranger." Damian perched on the edge of my desk, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "That's a shame. A woman like you should feel cherished every single day." My heart raced. When was the last time anyone had said something like that to me? "I should get back to work," I said, but I didn't move away. "Of course, but Cori, if you ever need someone to talk to, someone who appreciates good company, I'm a great listener." As he walked away, I felt more alive than I had in months. Maybe Lila was right. Maybe it was time I focused on myself for once. That evening, Mark was waiting in the kitchen when I got home, 20 minutes later than usual. "I texted you about dinner," he said, not looking up from the takeout containers he was unpacking. "I saw it," I said, hanging my purse on the hook by the door. "And you didn't answer because I was working, Mark. Some of us don't have the luxury of checking our phones every 5 minutes." He looked up then, confusion clear on his face. "I was just trying to plan dinner. I don't understand why you're being defensive." "I'm not being defensive. I'm just tired of feeling like I have to report my every move to you." "Report your moves? Cori, what's going on? You've been different lately." "Different." There was that word again. As if wanting to feel attractive and appreciated was somehow wrong. "Maybe I'm just tired of being taken for granted," I said, heading toward the stairs. "Taken for granted? What does that even mean?" But I was already halfway up the stairs, leaving him standing in the kitchen with his questions and his takeout, and his complete inability to see what was right in front of him. The next few days at work were different. Damian made a point of stopping by my desk each morning with coffee, asking about my weekend plans, complimenting my outfits. It was nothing inappropriate, just friendly attention from someone who seemed to actually see me. "That color looks incredible on you," he said Thursday morning, nodding at my blue blouse. "Really brings out your eyes." "Thank you," I said, feeling that familiar flutter. My husband didn't even notice I was wearing something new. "His loss," Damian said with a sympathetic smile. "Some men don't realize what they have until it's gone." The comment stayed with me all day. Was that what was happening? Was Mark taking me for granted because he assumed I'd always be there? During lunch, I called my mother, Patricia. "Sweetheart, you sound stressed," she said after I'd vented about Mark's recent distance. "I just feel like I'm disappearing, Mom. Like I'm becoming this invisible person who just exists to manage schedules and pack lunches." "Have you talked to Mark about this?" "I've tried, but he's always too busy or too tired. And when I do bring it up, he acts like I'm being unreasonable." "Well, you're not unreasonable. A woman needs to feel valued and appreciated. Mark should be grateful he has such a beautiful, intelligent wife. Maybe he needs a reminder of what he could lose." The validation from my mother felt good, but it also stirred something else inside me. A restlessness I'd been trying to ignore. That afternoon, Damian appeared at my desk as I was finishing up some filing. "Hey, a few of us are going for drinks after work. Nothing fancy, just the place across the street. You should come." I hesitated. Mark would be expecting me home, and Ellie had a school project we were supposed to work on together. "I don't know. I should probably head home." "Come on, just one drink. You look like you could use some adult conversation and relaxation." He was right. When was the last time I'd gone out after work? When was the last time I'd done anything spontaneous? Okay, I said, surprising myself. Just one drink. I texted Mark. Having drinks with coworkers. We'll be home by 7. His response came quickly. What about Ellie's project? Instead of answering, I put my phone in my purse. Ellie's project could wait one night. I deserved this. The bar was crowded with after-work professionals, and I felt a thrill being part of the scene again. Damian bought the first round and made sure I was included in every conversation. He laughed at my jokes, asked my opinions, and made me feel like the most interesting person in the room. "You're really funny, Cori," he said during a lull in the group conversation. "Your husband's a lucky guy." "Sometimes I wonder if he thinks so," I said, the alcohol making me more honest than I should have been. "Trust me, any man who doesn't appreciate a woman like you is an idiot." The compliment went straight to my head, mixing dangerously with the wine I'd been drinking. "You're sweet," I said, leaning closer to be heard over the bar noise. "I'm honest," he corrected, his eyes locked on mine. By the time I got home, it was almost 8:30. Mark was in the kitchen helping Ellie with her project, and both of them looked up when I walked in. "Mommy, you missed helping with my volcano," Ellie said, her voice disappointed. Guilt twisted in my stomach. "I'm sorry, baby. Mommy had to work late." "I thought you said drinks with coworkers," Mark said quietly. "It was a work thing," I said, avoiding his eyes. "A networking opportunity." "Networking," he repeated, and something in his tone made me defensive. "Yes, networking. Some of us have to actually work to advance our careers." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I'm just tired. I'm going upstairs." As I climbed the stairs, I heard Ellie ask Mark why I seemed sad all the time lately. His answer was too quiet for me to hear, but the question hit me hard. Was I sad? Or was I just finally waking up to what I'd been missing? The next day, Damian was waiting by my car when I left work. "Hey, how was the rest of your evening?" "Fine," I said, though it hadn't been fine. Mark had been cold and distant, and Ellie had gone to bed without her usual goodnight hug. "You seem upset. Want to talk about it?" I looked at him, this attractive man who seemed genuinely interested in my well-being, and made a decision that would change everything. "Actually, yes, I would like to talk about it." We ended up at a coffee shop downtown, sitting in a corner booth, while I told him about my marriage, my frustrations, my feeling of being invisible in my own life. "You deserve so much better," he said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "You deserve to be with someone who sees how amazing you are." His touch sent electricity through me. "Damian, I know you're married, I respect that, but I also think you're incredible, and if your husband can't see that, he's a fool." I should have pulled my hand away, should have said this was inappropriate. Instead, I let him hold my hand while he told me how beautiful I was, how smart, how any man would be lucky to have my attention. "I should go," I finally said, but I didn't move. "Of course. But Cori, if you ever need someone to remind you how special you are, I'm here." When I got home that night, Mark was waiting in the living room. "We need to talk," he said. "About what?" "About whatever's going on with you lately. You're distant, you're defensive, you're coming home late. What's happening, Cori?" I looked at my husband, really looked at him. When had he gotten so serious? So tired-looking? When had we stopped laughing together? "Nothing's happening, Mark. I'm just trying to have a life outside of this house." "A life outside of our family? A life outside of being invisible," I snapped. "When was the last time you really talked to me? When was the last time you asked about my day or my dreams or anything that didn't involve schedules and logistics? I ask about your day all the time." "No, you ask about dinner plans and pickup schedules. You ask about things that affect you. You never ask about me." Mark was quiet for a long moment. "You're right," he said finally. "I've been distracted with work, with Ellie's school issues, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you." It feels like you don't. Then let's fix it. Let's go to counseling. Let's plan a date night. Let's figure this out together. For a moment I wavered. This was Mark trying, Mark offering solutions. But then I thought about Damian's hand on mine, the way he looked at me like I was fascinating and beautiful, and Mark's offer felt too little, too late. I don't know if I want to fix it, I said quietly. The hurt that flashed across Mark's face almost made me take the words back. Almost. What does that mean? It means maybe we've grown apart. Maybe this isn't working anymore. This? Our marriage? Our family? I don't know, Mark. I just know I'm not happy. He stared at me for a long time. Is there someone else? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. I could have said no, should have said no. There's someone who makes me feel like I matter, I said instead. The color drained from Mark's face. Cori. I'm going to bed, I said, standing up. We can talk about this later. But as I climbed the stairs, I knew we wouldn't talk about it later. I knew I'd already crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure I wanted to. The weekend was tense. Mark tried to act normal around Ellie, but I could feel his eyes on me, watching, analyzing. Saturday morning, while Ellie played in her room, he cornered me in the kitchen. About what you said last night. Mark, please, not now. When then? When do we talk about the fact that my wife just told me there's another man? I didn't say there was another man. I said someone makes me feel valued. What's the difference? I couldn't answer that because I wasn't sure there was a difference anymore. Monday morning, Damian was waiting with my usual coffee, but this time there was a note wrapped around the cup. You looked beautiful in that coffee shop. Thank you for trusting me with your thoughts. D. My hands trembled as I read it. This was dangerous territory, but I couldn't deny the thrill that ran through me. Thank you for listening, I said when he stopped by my desk later. Anytime. Actually, there's a new restaurant downtown I've been wanting to try. Would you like to have dinner sometime? As friends, of course. Friends. We both knew it wouldn't be just friends, but the pretense made it easier to say yes. I'd like that. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. I nodded, already planning what I'd tell Mark. That evening, I told my husband I had a work dinner with a potential client. On a Tuesday night, he asked. Business doesn't stop for weekdays, Mark. Which client? The question irritated me. Since when do you micromanage my work schedule? Since you started acting like a stranger in your own home. I'm not acting like anything. I'm just trying to advance my career. Sorry if that's inconvenient for you. Mark stared at me for a long moment. I don't recognize you anymore, Cori. Maybe you never really knew me to begin with. Tuesday evening, I spent an hour getting ready, choosing a black dress that hugged my curves, applying makeup with more care than I had in months. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the woman I used to be before marriage and motherhood had dulled my edges. The restaurant Damian chose was intimate, with dim lighting and small tables that encouraged close conversation. He stood when I arrived, his eyes appreciative as they traveled over my dress. You look stunning, he said, pulling out my chair. Thank you. This place is beautiful. Not as beautiful as you. The compliment should have felt cheesy, but instead, it made me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Over dinner, Damian told me about his life, his dreams of starting his own business, his recent divorce from a woman who never appreciated what she had. I told him about my college dreams of being a photographer, ambitions I'd set aside when Ellie was born. Why did you give it up? He asked. Life got in the way. Marriage, motherhood, bills, you know how it is. I know how it is for people who settle, he said gently. But you don't seem like someone who should settle. What do you mean? I mean you're too vibrant, too alive to just accept a life that doesn't fulfill you. The wine in his words made me bold. What would you do if you were me? He leaned forward, his hand covering mine on the table. I'd remember that life is short. I'd remember that I deserve to be happy, to be cherished, to be with someone who sees my worth. Damian, I know this is complicated. I know you have obligations. But I also know that from the moment I met you, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. My breath caught. You can't say things like that. Why not? Because you're married to someone who doesn't appreciate you. Because it's not that simple. Isn't it? His thumb traced circles on my hand. You're beautiful, intelligent, funny. You deserve to be with someone who tells you that every day. And you think you're that someone? I think I could be if you gave me the chance. The restaurant suddenly felt too warm, too small. I should go. Should you? Or do you think you should? The question hit me hard because I knew the answer. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay here in this bubble, where someone thought I was fascinating and beautiful and worth pursuing. One more drink, he suggested. There's a nice bar in the hotel next door. I knew what he was really asking, knew where this was heading, and instead of saying no, instead of thinking about Mark and Ellie and the life I'd built, I heard myself say, okay, one more drink. The hotel bar was elegant and dimly lit, with plush seating and soft music. Damian ordered wine, and we found a quiet corner where the conversation became more intimate, more charged. Tell me something about yourself that no one else knows, he said. That's dangerous territory. I like danger, especially with you. The wine made me honest. Sometimes I lie awake at night and wonder what my life would have been like if I'd made different choices, if I'd waited to get married, traveled more, pursued my photography. It's not too late, isn't it? I have a daughter, a mortgage, responsibilities. You also have one life to live, and right now, you're wasting it on someone who doesn't see your value. His hand moved to my thigh, a gentle touch that sent fire through my veins. Damian, we can't. Can't what? Can't acknowledge this connection between us. Can't admit that you feel more alive right now than you have in years. He was right, and that terrified me. I did feel more alive. I felt beautiful and desired and interesting. Come upstairs with me, he whispered, just to talk, just to be somewhere quiet where we can really connect. I knew it wouldn't be just talking, knew I was about to cross a line that would change everything, but sitting there, looking into his dark eyes, feeling wanted and beautiful for the first time in years, I couldn't bring myself to care about consequences. Okay, I whispered. The elevator ride to his room was silent but charged with electricity. When he opened the door and stepped aside to let me in, I hesitated for just a moment. We don't have to do anything you don't want to do, he said softly. But I did want to. That was the problem. I wanted to feel desired and beautiful and alive. I wanted someone to look at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the world. When he kissed me, soft and tentative at first, then deeper when I didn't pull away, I forgot about everything else. Forgot about Mark waiting at home, about Ellie sleeping in her bed, about the life I was about to betray. For one night, I just wanted to feel like I mattered. Later, as I drove home through the dark streets, reality began to seep back in. What had I done? How could I face Mark? How could I look at Ellie knowing what I'd just done to her family? But underneath the guilt was something else. A satisfaction, a sense of being alive and desired that I hadn't felt in years. Maybe this was what I needed. Maybe this was what I deserved. Mark was asleep when I got home, and I slipped into bed beside him, my skin still carrying the scent of another man's cologne. As I lay there in the dark, I told myself it was just one night. Just one moment of feeling beautiful and wanted. I had no idea that someone had seen me leaving the hotel with Damian. Had no idea that my one night of feeling alive was about to destroy everything I thought I wanted to protect. Wednesday morning at the office felt different. I caught Jenny from accounting, looking at me strangely, and when I walked past a group of co-workers in the break room, their conversation stopped abruptly. "Morning, Cori," said Susan from HR, but her usual friendly smile seemed forced. Paranoia crept up my spine. Did they know? How could they know? Damian appeared at my desk around 10, casual as always, but there was a new intimacy in his smile that made me nervous. "Good morning, beautiful. How are you feeling today?" "Fine," I said quickly, glancing around to see if anyone was listening. "About last night?" "Not here," I interrupted. "People might hear." He raised an eyebrow. "Okay. Lunch then." I wanted to say no, wanted to pretend last night had never happened, but the way he looked at me made my resolve weaken. Maybe. At lunchtime, my phone rang. "Mark." "Hey," I answered, trying to sound normal. "How was your client dinner last night?" "Fine. Productive." "Good. Listen, I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about feeling invisible. I want to fix this, Cori. I want us to work." The sincerity in his voice made guilt twist in my stomach. "Mark, I know I've been distracted lately. Work has been crazy, and I've been worried about Ellie, but that's no excuse. You're my wife. You should come first. It's not that simple." "Why not? We love each other. We have a beautiful daughter. We can fix this." I closed my eyes, thinking about Damian's hands on my skin, the way he made me feel alive and beautiful. "I don't know if love is enough anymore." There was a long pause. "What does that mean?" "It means I need time to think." "Time to think about what? About us? About our marriage?" "About everything." Another pause. "Cori, is there something you need to tell me?" My heart pounded. "Like what? Like whether you're having an affair?" The direct question hit me like a physical blow. "Mark, just answer the question. Are you sleeping with someone else?" I could have lied. Should have lied. Instead, I said, "I need to go. We'll talk tonight." I hung up before he could respond, my hand shaking. "Trouble in paradise?" Damian appeared beside my desk, concern in his voice. "He knows something." "How could he know anything?" "I don't know, but he asked me directly if I was having an affair." Damian glanced around, then leaned closer. "What did you tell him?" I hung up. "Cori, that's basically a confession." Panic rose in my throat. "What am I going to do?" "Breathe. First, you're going to breathe. Then you're going to decide what you want." "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you want to go back to being invisible in your marriage, or do you want to be with someone who sees your worth?" The question hung between us, loaded with possibility and danger. That afternoon, I called Lila. "I think Mark suspects something," I said without preamble. "Suspects what? Cori, what have you done?" I told her about Damian, about the dinner, about what happened at the hotel. There was a long silence. "Oh, Cori, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking that I deserved to feel beautiful and wanted." "But you're married. You have Ellie to think about." "So I'm supposed to just accept being miserable for the rest of my life?" "You're not miserable. You're just going through a rough patch. All marriages have them." "This isn't a rough patch, Lila. This is me realizing that I settled for a life that doesn't make me happy." "And you think having an affair is the solution?" "I think maybe Mark and I aren't right for each other anymore." Another long pause. "Are you talking about divorce?" The word hung in the air like a bomb. "I don't know. Maybe." "Cori, you need to think about this carefully. You have a child. You have a life together. Don't throw it all away for some guy you barely know." But I did know Damian. I knew he made me feel alive in a way Mark never had. I knew he saw me as beautiful and interesting and worth pursuing. That evening, Mark was waiting in the living room when I got home. Ellie was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Ellie?" I asked. "At my mother's. We need to talk without interruption." I sat down across from him, my heart pounding. "I'm going to ask you again, and I want the truth. Are you having an affair?" I looked at my husband, this man I'd married 8 years ago, and realized I felt nothing. No love, no guilt, no regret, just emptiness. "Yes," I said quietly. The word hit him like a physical blow. He actually flinched, his face going pale. How long? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. How long, Cori? A few weeks. It's not serious. Not serious. His voice cracked. You're sleeping with another man, and it's not serious. Mark, our marriage has been over for months. We both know it. I don't know that. I thought we were going through a difficult time. I thought we could work through it. Well, maybe you were wrong. He stared at me for a long moment. Who is he? Someone from work. Someone from work, of course. He laughed bitterly. How cliché. Don't be cruel, Mark. Cruel? I'm being cruel. You're the one who's been lying and cheating and destroying our family. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just finally being honest about what we both know. What do we both know? That we're not happy, that we haven't been happy for a long time. Mark stood up, pacing to the window. I was happy, Cori. Maybe not perfectly happy every single day, but I was content. I thought we had a good life. A good life for you, maybe. But what about what I wanted? What do you want? I want to feel alive. I want to feel beautiful and desired and interesting. I want to matter. You do matter. You matter to me, to Ellie. No, Mark, I matter to you as a wife and mother, as someone who manages your schedule and takes care of your daughter and keeps your house running. But when was the last time you looked at me and saw me? Really saw me? He turned to face me, tears in his eyes. I see you every day. No, you see what I do for you. You don't see who I am. And this other man sees who you are. Yes, he sees that I'm beautiful and smart and interesting. He sees that I have dreams and desires beyond being a wife and mother. So what happens now? The question I'd been dreading. I don't know. Do you want a divorce? I want to be happy. That's not an answer. I looked at this man I'd promised to love forever and realized I didn't love him anymore. Maybe I never had. Maybe I just loved the idea of being married, of having a family, of having a life that looked perfect from the outside. Maybe it is an answer, I said quietly. The pain that flashed across Mark's face almost made me take it back. Almost. What about Ellie? Ellie will be fine. Lots of kids have divorced parents. Ellie will be fine. His voice rose. You're talking about destroying her family, and you think she'll be fine. I'm talking about being honest instead of living a lie. The only lie here is whatever story you've told yourself to justify this betrayal. I stood up. I'm not going to sit here and be lectured by you. Where are you going? Out. To him? I didn't answer, but I didn't need to. The look on Mark's face told me he already knew. As I drove to Damian's apartment, I told myself I was doing the right thing. I was choosing happiness over obligation, passion over routine, life over slow death. I had no idea that Mark had already started documenting everything. Had no idea that my choice to prioritize my happiness over my family's stability was about to cost me everything I thought I wanted to keep. The next few days passed in a blur of stolen moments, with Damian and tense silences with Mark. We were living like strangers in the same house, polite but distant, especially when Ellie was around. Friday evening, Mark's mother Martha came for dinner, a weekly tradition I'd grown to dread even before everything fell apart. Now, sitting across from her disapproving stare, I felt like I was under a microscope. You look tired, Corisande, she said, using my full name like a weapon. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine, Martha, just busy at work. Her eyes narrowed. Mark tells me you've been working late quite often recently. I felt Mark tense beside me, but he didn't say anything. Sometimes work requires extra hours, I said carefully. Of course, though I always found that a good wife prioritizes her family over her career ambitions. The barb hit its mark, but instead of backing down, I felt anger flare. Well, times have changed, Martha. Women today don't have to choose between having careers and having families. No, but they do have to choose between being good wives and being selfish. Martha, Mark said quietly, please. What? I'm just saying that when I was married to your father, I understood that marriage required sacrifice. That putting your family first meant sometimes putting yourself second. I set down my fork, my appetite gone. Maybe that's why so many women of your generation were miserable. The silence that followed was deafening. Martha's face flushed red, and Mark looked like he wanted to disappear under the table. "Excuse me?" Martha's voice was ice cold. I said maybe that's why so many women were miserable. Because they were taught to sacrifice their own happiness for everyone else's comfort. "Cori," Mark warned. "No, Mark, I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of sitting here every Friday night and letting your mother judge my choices in my life." "Judge your choices?" Martha's voice rose. "What choices? The choice to neglect your husband? The choice to come home late every night while your daughter asks where mommy is? The choice to have a life outside of this house? Outside of your family, you mean?" "Yes, outside of my family. I'm allowed to exist as more than just Mark's wife and Ellie's mother." Martha turned to Mark. "Are you going to let her speak to me this way?" Mark looked between us, his face pale. "Mum, maybe your mother should mind her own business," I snapped. "My son's happiness is my business," Martha shot back. "And right now, he looks miserable." "That's not my fault." "Isn't it? You're his wife. Making him happy is literally your job." I laughed, a harsh sound that made everyone flinch. "Making him happy is my job? What about making me happy? What about what I need?" "What you need is to remember your commitments and your responsibilities. What I need is to feel like I matter as more than just a housekeeper and babysitter." "Cori, stop," Mark said, his voice strained. "No, I won't stop. I'm tired of being told what I should want and how I should feel. I'm tired of being made to feel guilty for wanting more than this." "More than what?" Martha demanded. "More than a loving husband and a beautiful daughter and a comfortable home? More than being invisible? More than being taken for granted? More than slowly disappearing until there's nothing left of who I used to be?" The words hung in the air like accusations. Martha stared at me with undisguised disgust, and Mark looked like I'd slapped him. "If that's how you really feel," Martha said slowly, "then maybe you don't deserve what you have." "Maybe I don't," I said, standing up. "Maybe I deserve better." I left the dining room and went upstairs, my heart pounding with adrenaline and anger. Behind me, I could hear Martha's voice, low and urgent, talking to Mark. I couldn't make out the words, but I could imagine what she was saying. 20 minutes later, Mark appeared in our bedroom doorway. "My mother's gone," he said quietly. "Good. Cori, what was that? What's happening to you?" "I'm finally being honest." "Honest about what? About hating our life? About hating me?" I turned to face him. "I don't hate you, Mark, but I don't love you anymore either." The words hit him like a physical blow. "You don't mean that." "I do mean it. I've been trying to convince myself otherwise for months, but I can't anymore. Because of him, because of this affair, because of me, because I finally realized that I deserve to be with someone who makes me feel alive. And I don't make you feel alive. No, Mark, you don't." He was quiet for a long time, and when he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to let me go." "Let you go? What about Ellie? What about our family?" "Ellie will adjust. Kids are resilient." "Resilient?" His voice cracked. "She's 7 years old, Cori. She needs her mother." "She'll still have her mother. I'm not disappearing. I just won't be living here anymore." "You want to move out? To be with him?" "I want to be happy, and I can't be happy here." Mark sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. "I don't understand how we got here. We got here because we got married too young and settled for a life that looks good on paper but doesn't actually make us happy. It makes me happy." "Does it? Really? Or are you just comfortable with the routine?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Mark, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, but either way, this marriage is over." He looked up at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Not just hurt or confusion, but something harder. Something that looked almost like hatred. "If that's what you want," he said quietly, then that's what you'll get. Something in his tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling away. Mark was hurt and angry, but he'd get over it. We both would. And eventually, we'd both be happier. I had no idea that Mark had already consulted a lawyer. Had no idea that he'd been documenting my affair, my late nights, my absence from family dinners. Had no idea that while I'd been focused on my own happiness, he'd been building a case that would destroy everything I thought I could keep. The next morning, Ellie was quiet at breakfast, pushing her cereal around her bowl without eating. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked. "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Grandma Martha told Daddy that some wives don't deserve their families, and then you and Daddy were yelling." I looked at Mark, who was staring into his coffee cup. "Ellie, sometimes grown-ups have problems they need to work out." "But are you getting divorced?" Mark finally looked up. "We don't know yet, sweetheart, but whatever happens, Mommy and Daddy will always love you." "But you won't love each other anymore?" The simple question from our 7-year-old daughter should have broken my heart, should have made me reconsider everything. Instead, all I felt was impatience to get this conversation over with. Sometimes people grow apart, Ellie. It doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong. It just means they're not right for each other anymore. Ellie started crying then, quiet tears that she tried to hide by looking down at her cereal. "Come here, baby," I said, reaching for her. But she ran to Mark instead, burying her face against his chest while he held her and glared at me over her head. "I hope you're happy," he said quietly. But I wasn't happy. Not yet. I wouldn't be happy until I was free to be with Damian, free to start over, free to be the person I was meant to be, instead of the person I'd settled for being. I had no idea that my freedom was about to come at a price I'd never imagined paying. Monday morning brought a surprise I wasn't prepared for. I arrived at work to find Damian's desk empty, his temporary assignment apparently over. "Where's Damian?" I asked Jenny from accounting. She gave me a strange look. "His temp assignment ended Friday. Didn't you know?" My stomach dropped. "Did he leave a forwarding number? An email?" "I don't think so. Temps usually just move on to the next assignment." I spent the morning in a panic, trying to reach him on his cell phone, but the number went straight to voicemail. By lunch, a horrible realization was settling in. Damian was gone, and he hadn't even said goodbye. I was still trying to process this when my phone rang. "Mark." "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "Can you meet me at Harris & Klein Law Offices at 5 o'clock? "Law offices? Mark, what's going on?" "Just be there, Cori. 5th floor, suite 502. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in confusion and growing dread. The law offices were downtown, in a sleek building that screamed expensive. I found suite 502 and walked into a reception area where Mark was already waiting, sitting beside a woman in a sharp business suit. "Cori," Mark stood as I entered. "This is Rebecca Klein, my attorney." "Your attorney?" My voice came out higher than intended. "Mark, what is this?" "Please have a seat," Rebecca said, gesturing to a chair across from them. "We have some documents to discuss." I sat down reluctantly, my heart pounding. "What kind of documents?" Rebecca opened a thick folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "Divorce papers, Mrs. Felton. Your husband is filing for dissolution of marriage." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Divorce papers? Mark, we agreed to talk about this. We agreed to figure things out." "No, Cori. You told me the marriage was over. You told me you wanted to be happy, and you couldn't be happy with me. So I'm giving you what you want. But I thought we'd discuss custody, figure out arrangements." "We are discussing arrangements," Rebecca said smoothly. "Mr. Felton is seeking full custody of your daughter." "Full custody?" I shot to my feet. "That's ridiculous. Ellie is my daughter too." "Please sit down, Mrs. Felton," Rebecca said. "Let me explain the situation." I sat down slowly, my legs suddenly weak. Your husband has documented evidence of your extramarital affair, including hotel receipts, witness statements, and photographic evidence of you leaving said hotel with another man. Rebecca slid the photos across the table like evidence at a trial. Me and Damian, hotel door, his arm low on my waist. Me laughing up at him in the parking lot, hair still messy from the room. Mark watched me look at them. You missed Ellie's play for that, he said, voice flat. You told her divorce was no big deal, so you could keep that. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out that wasn't a lie. Rebecca laid out the next pages. Missed school pickups, text messages at 2 a.m., Ellie's teacher's statement that my daughter cried in the hallway because Mommy forgot the science fair poster again. Then the custody proposal, primary to Mark. Me, every other weekend, supervised until further notice. I laughed, one sharp, ugly sound. You're taking my daughter because I had sex. No, Mark said. I'm keeping her because you disappeared long before you ever touched him. You just made it official. Where's Damian now, Cori? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He was gone the day his contract ended. No goodbye, no forwarding address. Mark stood. Sign, or we do this in open court, and Ellie gets to hear why Mommy needed a new boyfriend more than a family. I signed. 3 months later, I have a 1-bedroom with second-hand furniture and a visitation schedule taped to the fridge. Ellie brings her backpack, kisses me hello, calls me Mom, like it's a borrowed word. She saves her real smiles for the Wednesdays her dad picks her up early. Mark is dating the school librarian now. She braids Ellie's hair and never misses a game. I learned what attractive really means. It's the person who shows up. It's the person who stays. I just learned it in time to watch someone else become her.